The mirror catches the exact second it happens. His own signature, once a promise to himself, slides across the bottom of the document, turning never into maybe. Paper whines but refuses to tear. The nib drags over the word he'd sworn to protect, leaving ink like a bruise. He lowers the pen. The room still smells faintly of iron. Why is his hand shaking after the line is already drawn? The calendar on the wall still lists Wednesday, and the rest of the office never skips a beat. Outside, the sun slides along the bricks the same way it always does. Cold, pale light spilling across the row of desks where papers wait for approval. He leans back, letting the chair squeak as he rubs his thumb over the crease of the signature. Somewhere down the hall, the copier hums, a steady regularity anchoring the morning. A cup of coffee cools beside him. He takes another sip, tasting only predictable bitterness. On the shelf, folders stand in neat towers, labeled with dates and departments, tabs aligned like a chorus line. He glances once more at the document, then sets the pen beside the blotter, careful not to jostle it. A soft clatter from the break room signals someone stirring sugar. No rush. Just the same ritual that greets this hour every day. He inhales, counting breaths, feeling the familiar cadence of the space. Paper, ink, the faint metallic scent lingering from the morning's briefing. The routine holds, steady and known, the same as when he walked in an hour ago. The room buzzes with the clatter of coffee cups and the scrape of chairs. Mara props herself against the table, palms pressed to the wood as if it could steady her. Juno slides a printed ledger across, eyes flicking between Mara and the planning committee. "We're counting on you to sign off on these numbers before the meeting ends," he says, voice bright but edged. "The donors won't wait forever." Mara's throat tightens. Her fingers trace the margin where she'd scribbled "adjusted projection" in the previous meeting. The numbers include a shortcut, an overestimate of volunteer capacity she knows is exaggerated. The shortcut keeps the donors happy and the committee moving forward. She remembers the night she told herself she couldn't say no, and how quickly the lie slid into place. "I said I saw the new schedule," Mara hears herself say, the words tasting stale. "I told them I verified it with the field crew. It isn't exactly true." Her shoulders tighten. "It's only a small difference. I let it go. I let myself say it, even though I knew I hadn't double-checked." Silence drops for a beat, then smiles flash across faces. Juno leans in, nodding as if they're still on the same page. "We all fudge here and there," he murmurs, tapping Mara's hand. "You're doing it for the team, right? No need to overthink." Across from them, Bree shifts. "You didn't have to do that alone," she says, not looking at Mara. "Next time, call me before you let them roll with the wrong timeline." Mara swallows. She can feel the breath catch somewhere low in her chest. "It wasn't even the timeline," she whispers. "I let them believe we had the volunteer lead when I never heard back." Bree's jaw tightens. Her fist drums on the table. "We went over this last week. You promised to tell me before you confirmed." "I know," Mara replies, head dipping. "I just kept nodding because everyone else already said it would be fine." She looks up, eyes shifting toward the door as Jules, the operations ghost, steps in with a stack of printouts. "They said the donors love momentum. They said if we show hesitation, the whole pitch collapses." Jules sets the papers down, sensing the crack. "So, we're going to keep selling a schedule that doesn't exist?" she asks, voice low. Mara lifts a shoulder. "We're not selling anything," she says, though the words come out hollow. I just went along. She doesn't promise to change anything, doesn't offer to tell the donors. She just nods, a small admission hanging in the air. The room softens with collective breath, the tension easing when everyone turns back to the ledger. Juno picks up Mara's pen, tapping it against the table. "Fine," he says, already diving into the spreadsheet. "We'll make sure the field crew hears from Bree tonight, so Mara's note isn't the only voice out there." Bree exhales sharply, then leans back in her chair. "Next time you let it slip, you tell me before anyone signs," she says, voice rough. "Deal?" Mara's fingers curl around the coffee cup. She nods once, eyes fixed on the swirling pattern in the foam. "Deal," she says, though she makes no new promises beyond the moment. The ledger stays open between them as the team returns to work. The social pressure easing, but the admission sitting heavy on Mara's tongue. The room shifts forward, the committee moving toward the donor meeting, now carrying the weight of her small compromise. The conference room smelled of burnt coffee and marker fumes. Mara slid the laminated schedule toward Bree, her fingers leaving wet ghosts in the glossy surface between shifts. "I can't leave it like this," she said, the words rushing out. "I told them I'd verified every slot. I said the lead approved." Bree's eyes didn't look up from the page. "The lead never saw it. I kept asking. You promised we'd talk before locking anything." She pushed the pen so it skidded against the plastic. "Now the volunteers are waiting, and we have half a crew double booked. We can't even get a clear start time." Mara grabbed a chair. The metal scraped, a harsh complaint in the quiet. She leaned over the table, fingers splayed. I know. I lied. I froze when they asked, and She ripped the page from the top, revealing the handwritten scribbles. "And I said yes because I wanted them off my back. I just didn't want to hear the same questions again." The words clipped together, an apology still surrounded by air. Bree's jaw tightened. "So, we're still waiting on the volunteer lead's approval and on the committee to cover the gaps we haven't fixed yet." She hit the table with her palm. "Every hour we wait, the training room stays empty or crowded with people who hate this. You broke the agreement, Mara. I need to know how we stop it from happening again." Mara looked down at her hands. The calluses caught the light. "I should have said no, or asked for help. I promised to consult. I'm not sure how to trust myself when I panic like that." The sentence stopped on its own, disbelief clinging like static. "Then prove you can still live up to what we agreed on," Bree demanded, softer but not forgiving. "Help me fix the schedule now. Call the volunteer lead. Ask Juno for the August crew update. Don't move until we have both." Mara reacted without waiting. She flipped her phone open and dialed. Her thumbs trembled against the screen. "Juno?" The voice through the speaker sounded distant. "Yeah, I'm here with Bree. She pushed a page toward Bree again. "Here's what's wrong. Can you confirm what we're missing?" Bree read the highlighted slots, pointing out overlaps while Mara scribbled corrections. Her shoulders ached as if someone pressed weight into her collarbones. But she kept leaning into the mess. "The committee can't move until we have an accurate picture," Bree said. "So make the call. Stay on it until we get the volunteer lead sign-off." Her tone shifted. There was a sharp edge of relief now that something concrete was happening. Mara nodded, then raised her head to Bree's. "I'll sit back there until the call ends. I promise I won't finalize anything without you." The words weren't a guarantee. They were a desperate plea not to fall back into the same trap. She exhaled, watching the digits flash on the screen, waiting for a voice to answer. Bree pressed the pen down harder and circled the gaps. marking the corrected times with deliberate loops. The room felt lighter, but not forgiven. Tension remained lodged between apology and action. Mara's grip on the phone tightened as the call connected, a small payoff. She acknowledged the mistake and addressed it, even if trust still crackled around them. The conference room smells like coffee gone cold. A second interview starts with Lara flipping open her notebook, her recorder already humming. Mara sits with her hands folded around a pen, elbows on the table, eyes darting to Bree every time Lara lifts a page. The camera light winks on. The volunteer lead isn't here yet, which Mara doesn't mention until prompted. Lara asks, "Where does the schedule stand?" Mara slides the sheets toward Bree, then presses her lips together before speaking. "I called." Mara swallows and nods once. "I called after the last interview," she adds, "and I'm waiting on that call back before touching anything." Lara taps her pen against her notebook. "You told the volunteers it was verified," she states, and the recorder picks up the slight catch in Mara's breath. Mara draws in air, fingers curling around the pen so tightly the cap rattles. "It wasn't verified," she says, "and I'm owning that now." Bree exhales slowly, still not relaxing. "Then we stop the rollout tonight. I'm not approving a table built on a lie." She lifts the marker and crosses out the new start time. Juno nods. "Agreed. Nothing goes live until we hand this to the lead and they say, okay." Lara's voice softens. "I'll note that the committee paused until confirmation arrives," she says, pointing the recorder down. "That's the story." Lara switches off the camera. Mara stands, sets the pen down with more force than necessary, and lifts her phone. "I'm calling them again right now," she says, glancing at Bree, who doesn't look away. Mara steps into the hallway. Bree barely moves, still holding the unsent schedule, but her grip loosens. The tension pulses through her shoulders, but eases just enough to show she isn't surrendering. In the room, the interview leaves a residue. The timeline stays unfinished, the volunteers still waiting, the guilt palpable, the trust frayed, but the next step's clear. "We'll wait," Bree says, and Lara nods, notebook closing. The fluorescent lights in the conference room hummed as Lara kept one hand on the recorder and the other on a stack of sign-in sheets. Volunteers trickled in and out, eyes sliding across the printed timeline that still had the wrong start time circled in red. Bree paced by the whiteboard, arms folded, while Juno scrolled through her tablet, ready for any new confirmation. Mara sat halfway around the table, elbows digging into the mouth of the paper, a pen clicking endlessly like a heartbeat. Her phone, screen cracked at the corner, lay face up beside a coffee cup she hadn't touched since noon. A sharp knock split the air. Nia, the volunteer lead, shoved the door open with an assistant on her heels. "We can't get people to their spots because we're telling them 10 different things," she barked, dragging her fingers through her braids as if she could pull the schedule into place by force. She shoved the updated timeline toward Mara. "Who approved this? Where did these times come from?" Mara jerked to a standing position, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She pointed to the sheet, but her hand trembled so hard the pen skittered and left a blotch over Friday's row. "We were waiting for—" she started, voice rising, then broke when the door slammed again, as volunteers who'd been told to arrive spilled into the hall. Nia cut her off. "Nia, names are overlapping. People are scheduled in 2 places at once. You shared this without my okay. Do you believe this keeps happening because you're the only one making decisions?" Mara stepped back, hand clutching the edge of the table, knees bending like she might collapse. Juno reached out and steadied her shoulder. As the minutes ticked by, Mara's breaths came quicker, lips pale, a thin film of sweat gathered at her temples. She forced herself to reread the notes, but the letters smudged because she'd run her finger across the page to erase what she had written. The assistant counted volunteers outside. They were already arguing about shifts that didn't exist. Bree moved in front of Mara and spoke directly to Naya. "We can't move anything until you confirm. No more provisional schedules tonight." Her tone clipped enough to cut through the chatter. Mara stopped sharing updates. "Everyone is waiting on you." Nia's shoulders dropped slightly, the anger replaced by tight, cold patience. "Fine. I'll get on the phone myself." She held out her hand for the timeline. Mara let it go, smoothing the page with both palms as if she could flatten the tremors out of it. The payoff rolled in when Lara slid a tablet toward Nia with a fresh list. Volunteer availability aligned with the previously approved roster, but marked pending Nia's confirmation. Nia took it, nodded once and said, "Call me as soon as you hear anything from the lead team. I'm holding that line." Mara, still leaning against the table, watched as Lara stepped out to make the call. The room exhaled a little, but the jitter in Mara's fingers didn't leave. Her phone buzzed again, voicemail this time. The assistant stepped closer and said, "They're still at the other site. They'll call back when they can." Mara's mouth opened to respond, but her throat closed and she swallowed hard. The schedule remained inaccurate on the board. The only move left was to wait for the confirmed message that had yet to arrive. Bree wrote in bold letters on a fresh sheet, "No changes without confirmation. Nia or no one." She slid it across the table to Mara, who nodded and, fingers still shaking, checked each line one more time before folding her hands in her lap. The room stayed tense, but a small relief rippled through the volunteers when Nia's voice came back through the door. "I'll be here until someone verifies this." Bree clicks off the call with Juno and drags the chaired stool to the center of the committee table. The freshly printed schedule lies curled at the margin, still unapproved beyond a single scrawl of "Do not proceed." She sets the template beside it, lines already labeled "Volunteer Lead Confirmation," "Committee Sign-Off," "Release Hold." Hands still damp from the commute, she flips open her notebook and scribbles 5 dates, each anchoring a checkpoint where someone else must witness the data before it goes anywhere. Mara hovers by the dry erase board, the projector's light ghosting over her face. Bree doesn't wait for a request. "I'm locking this in," she says, sliding the board closer. Every change now passes through 3 people, starting with Nia, no exceptions. Mara's fingers twist the edge of her badge. "I already said I'll wait for confirmation," she begins, but Bree doesn't lift her eyes. "Not this vague," Bree replies. "You told the room a lie because you didn't want to be grilled. Now I'm stuck answering for it." Her palm flattens against the schedule. "I can forgive you," she adds, "if the proof is on paper, signed, and on record before another finger moves to approve it." The room tightens. Mara opens her mouth, hesitates, then nods. Bree pulls a sticky note from her notebook and sticks it to the board. Forgiveness comes after accountability. She doesn't say the words aloud, but her lips press together, and the note stares everyone down. "Every time I catch myself wanting to shrug this off," she tells herself, "I'll see this." Nia leans in, eyes scanning the schedule. "I'm already here," she says simply. "I'll sign off once I've walked through the shift with the team." Bree hands her the blank confirmation line, and Nia's pen scratches across it with a deliberate motion. Mara watches, then reaches for a different pen, her own, and signs the committee line, slow but steady. Bree crosses the top of the board with marker, writing "Verified, Nia, Briss, Mara," before stepping back. The tense crack in the air softens by a fraction, almost imperceptible, but enough that Mara exhales through her nose. Nia glances at Bree. "I'll sit through every handoff tonight," she says. Bree taps the board. "And you'll tell me the moment you see deviation," she replies, eyes snapping to Mara. We survive this by owning it as it happens. The room hums with motion. Phones buzz, pens roll, but the schedule stays pinned beneath the signatures. Bree folds the sticky note, tucks it into her notebook, and leans in to reroute the next call. The board now both warning and promise. Lara leans into the microphone, her clipboard angled toward the camera so the bright dot's light catches on the page. "We are live," she says, and the committee settles into the chairs around the table, the hum of the recorder becoming a third person in the room. Nia still holds the laminated schedule. She taps the inaccurate column with her thumb, the sound sharp enough to cut through the breathing room. "So," Lara continues, "I want to go line by line. Mara, you said you felt confident before the rollout. Where did that confidence break?" Mara's fingers trace the seam of her notebook without stopping. Her voice comes out clipped. "When I lied about the verification, I crossed a line I can't unsee," she says, and the recorder scribbles. She jerks her chin toward the wall of laminated steps Bree posted earlier, the multi-step verification chain now circled in red. "I've let the panic slug the signal out of me. I can't promise I'll keep every update clean unless someone else checks me first." Bree slides forward, her pen poised like a scalpel. "Then you don't," she says quietly. "Until Nia signs, it stays as is." Nia lifts the schedule, lays it back on the table, and underlines the new time block with the corner of a volunteer badge. "I will not delegate this," she says, voice low. "I'm sitting with Bree until the handoff. If Mara is uncertain, she can watch me verify." She turns to the recorder. "We're documenting that the only direction is down until the volunteer lead says go." An audible intake of breath from a committee member. Lara nods, scribbling. "So, it's not just a policy change. You're saying the trust in Mara's own decisions is gone?" Mara interrupts, standing. Her chair scrapes across the floor like a dragged thought. "I can't lie to you all anymore." She drops her palms on the table, flat. "Every time I feel the adrenaline surge, I hear the lie again. I don't trust my impulse to protect the timeline. I don't trust myself to protect the team." Juno, silent beside Bree, taps the freeze board. "The schedule is frozen until verification is recorded on this board," she states, glancing at the camera to make it official. She flips a fresh sheet, writes, "No update without lead signature," and pins it alongside Bree's steps. "Mara, that includes having one of us stand with you while Nia signs. You'll read aloud the confirmed hours when she's ready. The committee will log it." Mara nods once, small, almost imperceptible. She slides the notebook close, ink blurring under her hand, as she grips the pen. "I refuse to repeat this," she says softly. "I'm not worthy of the trust until I can prove every detail." The recorder keeps running as Lara finishes. "We are noting that Mara's confidence is not recovering yet. We're watching the process." She pauses, eyes flicking across the faces in the room. "And we're making sure the schedule waits for the volunteer lead." Nia catches Mara's gaze. "I'm here," she says, and the hand she raises to the schedule has a weight that settles over the table. "We'll go through each block. I'll sign only when I've checked, and I'll report every deviation back to Bree immediately." The room exhales, a tiny release when the recorder clicks off. No one claims the confidence is whole, but the freeze on the timeline feels palpable. Tension eased by the concrete promise of verification and the recorded admission that Mara's self-trust will take time. The air in the hall settled into the quiet of a held breath. Mara stood before the whiteboard where Bree had written the freeze in bold strokes and pinned the extra instructions, the ink still damp. Nia was there, palms flat on the table, eyes fixed on the frozen column of dates and names. Juno, shoulders slack with the weight of watching, held Bree's gaze until Bree's hand rose. Simple, deliberate, pointing to the empty square, waiting for Nia's signature. Mara reached for a marker, and with a tremor she could not hide, traced a line beneath the instructions. No updates, no crossings, no forward movement without the volunteer lead seal. She placed the pen beside the board and let her fingers brush the paper that now held Bree's careworn reminder. Forgiveness hung on documented steps. Her lips parted, and in the record of everyone's ears, she spoke what had already broken inside her. She could not trust her own verdicts, could not move alone. The room heard the crack, the refusal to pretend the fracture would mend itself. It was not a plea for fixing. It was a handing over. Mara stepped back, shoulders lowered, and the schedule, frozen, glared with its future undone.